Good morning, everyone. I have some questions about why we are reopening. It's not much of a reopening at level red in Guelph. We have control levels for the level of businesses that can be open, and red is the most controlled before going into a lockdown. We have one metric that says we should be in red, but all the other metrics say we should be in a different color, a lighter color, orange or yellow. I'll show you what the metrics were. Here's the CTV news from November 3rd when the color-coded system got rolled out. And basically, it relies almost 100% on cases. Regions placed in the protect category will have a weekly incidence rate between 10 cases and 24 cases per 100,000 people. Restrict orange is between 25 and 39 cases per 100,000 people. Control is anything above 40 cases per 100,000 people. So here is Guelph on December 28th, and we had 6 people in the hospital and 163 active cases, and we had 95 cases per 100,000. But all of the other metrics were pretty okay. Like we have lots of capacity in the acute care, that's yellow. We've got the R value is under 1, which was one of the main things that most of the doctors talked about. And our health system capacity is 100%. New cases reached within 24 hours, 100%. So it looks pretty good, right? And here is February 11th. Yesterday, right? 40 cases per 100,000, that's red, but everything else is very low, right? Test positivity rate is 1.8%. The R value is under 90%, 84%. Our acute care occupancy is under 90% at 86%. Intensive care is under 90 as well. 100% capacity for the healthcare. And we have, on February 12th, 6 people in the hospital, which is exactly the same as we had when we went into the lockdown anyway. Right? Isn't that odd? So we're opening with no change. And you can go to this website. This is CanadaReport.co. This is my website. I've been taking a picture every day of the lockdown metrics, and you can see how they change through this 45-day lockdown. It was supposed to be 28 days starting on December 26th. We're at day 45 of this now. And they're just opening up. And I fear that this case metric is going to be the only metric they use. And going through, we've been up to 100. Hold on, I'll show you the high. Here's January 8th, day 12 of lockdown, and we're at cases have skyrocketed per 100,000 to 138.5. Okay, and we have 3 people in the hospital. Okay, so case numbers are not tied to hospitalizations. Hospitalizations aren't taking off with the case numbers going up. January 11th, a month ago. Okay, we've got 149 as the case numbers per 100,000, 150 people per 100,000, and 3 people in the hospital. Interesting, right? And 256 active cases. At the beginning of the lockdown, it was 150. We have almost doubled the active cases and still no change in the hospitalizations. 149 is the peak, and 149 had 3 people in hospital. And carrying forward, here's January 12th, day 16 of lockdown. We see 29 confirmed cases, 251 active cases, 3 in hospital, 147. It starts to come down the day after. And then here's January 13th. We still got 3 in the hospital, and we're down to 133 cases per 100,000. And carrying forward, we've got 4 people in the hospital, January 15th, and we're back down to 109 cases per 100,000. So the cases per 100,000 have dropped by 40 people, and that's 50%, or less than 50%, maybe. Sorry, the math is off because, anyway, it's not quite 50%. But 150 to 109 is quite a drop-off, and now we've increased people in the hospital. How does that work, right? And so I'm very, very concerned that we don't have any solid metrics to guide the reopening of our city. And without solid metrics and without the idea that people can open their businesses with confidence that they won't be shut down, restaurants can't open, a whole bunch of places can't open, right? They have to staff, they have to work out who's going to work through the next couple of weeks. They have rules they have to comply with. They have to know roughly how much money they're going to make so they can pay the staff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many questions. And this is not a good framework. And so here's the Wellington Dufferin Public Health, and they say Wellington Dufferin Public Health Region will move out of the shutdown and into the red control level of the COVID-19 response framework at 12:01 on February 16th. Link to the COVID-19 response framework here. And here it is. This is the regions. So it says, based on general improvement in trends of key indicators, including lower transmission of COVID-19, improving hospital capacity, and available public health capacity to conduct rapid case and contact management, the following public health regions will be moved back to the framework on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021 at 12:01 a.m. My question is, what meaningfully changed? What meaningfully changed in Guelph between December 26th and February 11th? Because from where I'm sitting, from what I can see, what happened on February 11th looks very similar to what was happening in Guelph on December 26th, December 28th. The numbers look very, very similar. And yes, we have lower cases. Sure, we have lower cases. What does that do for us? It doesn't seem to do anything for us. Right? Is it realistic to get down to below 40 cases if we're opening up at 40 cases now? Right? All of the other metrics at 100 cases per 100,000 are the same. Even at 150 cases per 100,000, the metrics stay pretty much the same. So what is driving these decisions? And it looks like the province saying that we're going to be in red control based on the number of cases per 100,000 being at above 40, right? But is that it? And what does this mean to all of the other metrics? It seems like it means nothing to all the other metrics. It seems very, very strange to have the province saying that you can be in red and you have to follow this stringent pattern here, right? We're in red control, just a step away from a lockdown. Seasonality, does it look like seasonality? They're worried about the new strains as well. This is the Ontario news release as well. After returning to the framework, public health regions will stay at their level for at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks. That doesn't give us a very good metric. At least 2 weeks. What if they say it'll be 4 weeks? And we'll check after 4 weeks. The government will assess the impact of public health and workplace safety measures to determine if the regions should stay where they are or be moved to a different level. Public health regions will be moved up through the levels if necessary based on the set indicators and thresholds outlined in the framework. I just showed you that. It's basically just numbers per 100,000, which is has no impact on the rest of the numbers. Okay? Visitor restrictions for long-term care homes will once again apply to those homes in public health regions that are in orange restrict or high level. In addition, long-term care homes must implement enhanced testing requirements. Recognize the risk posed by new variants to the province's pandemic response. Ontario is introducing an emergency brake to allow the chief medical officer, in consultation with local medical officer of health, to immediately advise moving a region into gray lockdown to interrupt transmission. Local medical officers of health also have the ability to issue Section 22 orders under the Protection and Promotion Act to target specific risks in the community. How did the lockdown, when they give us, or when they say to the medical health officer and the public health officer, you have an emergency brake to stop transmission, that would imply they have evidence that lockdowns work. And I mean, other than the case numbers going down, the lockdown hasn't done anything. It hasn't done anything. This is February 11th. This is December 28th. They look almost identical, except for the cases per 100,000. And the cases per 100,000 literally mean nothing. Really, they're not tied to the other metrics. Like, because when you increase it by 50%, when you put it up to 150, all the metrics look the same. So here's the 149. So you increase this by 50%, you get an R value of above 1, right? And the non-EPI linked cases goes down. The acute care occupancy, 89. Intensive 7-day occupancy, or intensive care occupancy, 89%. Is this worth shutting down for? Is this an emergency? Who says this is an emergency, right? We destroyed our economy to get to this point, right? This is 12 days, 15 days into lockdown, and we're at this point. And now we're at 40 cases per 100,000, basically identical to where we were with the lockdown, or I guess half the cases that we were when we started the lockdown. But now it's time to open up. There's a whole lot of questions, and the variant fears. Okay, this is off Guardian. It says the shaky science. This was published February 8th. The shaky science behind the deadly new strain of SARS-CoV-2. According to what we hear from officials in the mainstream media, the new variants are the most dangerous and unpredictable beings since Osama bin Laden. Everyone needs to stay safe from these invisible but murderous mighty microbes by shunning contact with the unwashed, unmasked, and unvaccinated. But Is that drastic approach, which is accompanied by severe curtailment of civil liberties and constitutional rights, warranted? It turns out that the case for the variant contagiousness and dangerousness centers largely on the theoretical effects of just one change said to stem from a mutation in the virus's genes. And, as I'll show in this article, the case is very shaky. Here's a 9-minute explainer on that, and I'll just read this little section here because I think it explains it well. That one change is known as N501Y, a scientific shorthand for the substitution of one protein building block for another at position 501 in the part of the virus called the spike protein. Specifically, position 501 lies in the portion of the spike protein that's responsible for the intimate coupling between the virus and the cells that lets the virus slip inside and then multiply. Note that any such amino acid switcheroo is correctly called a change, not a mutation. Mutations occur only in genes. For some reason, many scientists and scribes who ought to know better are mistakenly calling N501Y and other amino acid changes mutations. A very preliminary study published December 22nd, 2020 suggests that N501Y is also present in the South African variant named 501YV2, and another very preliminary study published January 12, 21 asserts that it was also present in the new strain emerging from the Brazilian jungle dubbed P1. On top of that, the South African variant is being reported as evading immunity and B117 sharing this escape route, and scientists are depicting new variants with N501Y on board as spreading very fast. Some say they make herd immunity impossible, so every single person on Earth has to be vaccinated. The model also suggests B117 is up to 91% deadlier than the regular novel coronavirus. Yet, so far it seems that the main basis for officials saying it's more deadly is shown in the minutes of the January 21st meeting of an influential UK committee called New and Emerging Respiratory Virus Threats Advisory Group, NERVTAG. There, they cite modeling papers which haven't yet been published, which means they're not, until they're published, there's no way to check their work. So this is closed science. We have to take their word for it. And everybody's already taken their word for it, but it's not been peer reviewed. Nothing's been checked. How do we have this fear-mongering for a new strain when we don't have any data about how this new strain works? How are we even testing for the new strain? How are we figuring out if they have this new strain? When were the new tests developed? Are they testing simultaneously? Or do you have to test positive for COVID to then be tested for the new strain? Can you test negative for regular strain COVID and positive for the new strain? How does it work? I'd love to see it. But I fear that we're not going to see any of the information that we need to see to make our minds up in a way that is informed. And the funny thing to me about all this is both municipal leaders and federal and provincial leaders are blaming citizens for this. They're blaming citizens for basically what looks to be a seasonal respiratory virus. They're blaming citizens for not following the orders. Have you been out to the shops lately? I'm the only one not wearing a mask. I'm the only one. I walk into stores and I don't wear a mask and people look at me or run away or whatever they do. But the compliance level for the rules is very, very high. Very, very high. They're criminalizing living life. A bylaw officer came to the outdoor rink the other day and people scattered. Really, that's scary. That's not okay. Cam Guthrie says, "Let's not mess this up," says mayor as city announces reopening of many facilities. Don't you mess it up, citizen. That's not appropriate for a mayor to say. That's not appropriate. This is neither appropriate for a premier to say. Ford said on Friday that while the province is reopening, quote, "It's really up to the great people of Ontario to avoid the third wave." How many viruses work like that? The third wave. Do we usually get third waves of flu or second waves of flu? Sometimes you get a double flu spike, a seasonality spike, and I can show you that. I'm going to be putting together a video for my letter to the Waterloo, Wellington, Guelph, Dufferin Public Health Board, because I want to be addressing them on mandatory masking children in school. But regardless of that, I'll put something together that shows the seasonality of this as well. I've talked about this a lot, but I want to make sure. But shaming the public, shaming the citizens of this province is not the way leadership works. Goodness, this is a longer video than I intended it to be. Anyway, so I think that we're in a lot of trouble. I think that we're in a lot of trouble because the cases per 100,000 seems to be the only metric that they're using to run this. And while increasing cases per 100,000 does impact these numbers a little bit, is this enough for other people to say that, yes, the removal of our civil liberties is absolutely worth the value that we got in exchange for this lockdown? And yes, it seems like this is a reasonable approach and not a completely failing approach to addressing this problem. I think it's a completely failing approach. And I think that that's proven by the fact that we have the metrics don't look like a success. If you keep failing, why would you keep doing the same thing? Like if you keep failing and then retrying exactly the same experiment, what are you gaining? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, this is like my old videos, so I'm going to cut it off here. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, check out SpeakingMoistly.co, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to put together another video because I'm insane. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody.